Hey everyone, Ariel Adams here with aBlogtoWatch. Today I'm going to look at the new Tudor Black Bay Ceramic full ceramic, and we're going to ask the question, how does Tudor do all black and how does Tudor do all ceramic? This is not the first Black Bay Ceramic watch. There's other ones that have been in the market with a ceramic case. But what's new about this particular version, I'll mention the long reference number in a moment, it's the first time that Tudor has paired a black ceramic case for the Black Bay with a full ceramic bracelet. This particular version is the Tudor Black Bay Ceramic reference M7941A1ACNU-0001. I'm not going to say that again, but it's important because that's one of the only ways to recognize exactly which model this is. I've talked about some of the other Tudor Black Bay ceramics in the past. They came on straps. None of them had this sort of black on black motif. That's sort of another new thing here. We've had the Black Bay ceramic with the blue dial, which I enjoyed. There was the original Black Bay ceramic. There's a lot of great things about this watch. It's not for everyone. It's certainly more expensive than the steel versions of the Black Bay. But one thing I'll say, black is slimming. So while this watch at 41 millimeters wide has never been super big, it is thick. This is actually a 13.6 millimeter thick case. I'll put it on the wrist here and you can see what that looks like. That's not terribly thick, but it's not thin either. In fact, when I recently talked about the new Black Bay Chrono that had a smaller 39 case and a thinner case profile as well, everyone started talking about how they felt the Black Bay was kind of a thick watch. But here in black ceramic, I have to say, it's definitely slimming. Now, one thing that ceramic is not is particularly lightweight. That doesn't bother me, but I would say that it feels like a metal watch in terms of how heavy it is, and that's fine. It's a very dense and strong material, so it doesn't bother me that this is a watch that's on the heavier side. Titanium is something that would be lighter. Tudor doesn't really focus on titanium for the Black Bay, but the Tudor Pelagos family is probably what you want to look at if you want something that's a dive watch that's a little bit more lightweight. This is a fashion statement, but it's also a very cool watch. You know, there's sort of a shared history a little bit of the all-black watch and the ceramic watch, but they're very different histories and they converge here. And both of them really start in the early 2000s. So first, ceramic. Ceramic really was used mostly by Rado in the 1980s. No one really cared that much. Well, I mean, the buyers did, but for the collector community, it wasn't until Chanel with the J12 in around 2000 or so. 2004, no, maybe 2000, something around then. I've written this history, I forget these dates, but it came out with the J12 ceramic white and black, and it really put the ceramic watch on a ceramic bracelet on the market. Since then, there's been a relatively small number of truly good men's ceramic watches on bracelets. Chanel has vacillated between making the J12 for men. It did, it didn't, it is now again. You have a couple of other watches on the market, like I said, that have the full ceramic bracelet. Formex came out with one recently. Usually they're higher end. A few of them are affordable. The most affordable are not what I would say are amazing quality, and that's because ceramic is tough to work with, and you have to make a lot of weird compromises. For example, if you look on the bracelet here on the side, there's these little shiny elements. And what ends up happening is there's screws, and to make it so it's not too complicated, the screw acts like a screw with a bolt. So this side right here, and these are metal, the one that does not have the screw head on it, this is attached to it, and this comes out. And it's actually difficult to recognize that. This is a tiny part. People can drop and lose it. Thankfully, I didn't when I was sizing the bracelet. But the ceramic itself does not have threading. It cannot have the type of tight threading like metal that is necessary for a screw to secure into it. So a metal bracelet is a different type of architecture. Engineering a ceramic bracelet correctly is very difficult, and Tudor did a very beautiful job. One of the things that's important to see here is there's a slight taper. It's not crazy, but there's a slight taper from the case down to the bracelet. Usually the ceramic bracelets are all kind of the same size, having this sort of slight angle. You can see these links here in the middle. They're not straight on the side. They get straight here, we can adjust it, but there's a curvature. All of this is very difficult to do. The case is not just ceramic, but it has multiple finishes. And I think it was the Omega Speedmaster Dark Side of the Moon that really taught me how important this was. Where when you have what I call metal style contrast finishing on a ceramic case, it's great. And here you have mostly matte surfaces, but this angle right here on the side of the case is polished. That's actually the very same as with the steel versions of the Black Bay. The bezel is actually steel. The insert is ceramic. So what you mostly see is brushed ceramic, but the outside part here with the teeth that you turn, that's PVD coated steel. So that's not ceramic. But again, this particular part, the way that it's supposed to work, the way that it's supposed to have these small teeth, the way that it's supposed to be machined, you can't really do it with ceramic. Same thing with the crown. Actually, this crown might be ceramic. I'm not totally sure. You can make ceramic crowns, but a lot of them end up being metal. I haven't actually looked there, but this one might be actually ceramic, and it's got the Tudor, the logo that you find in the Black Bays, the kind of floral logo there. So I think that this is truly nicely done. The ceramic is of a very high quality. I mentioned Chanel multiple times, and that's somewhat ironic because the better, well, I wouldn't say the better, but a lot of the newer, more high-end Chanel J12s have a Kenissi movement. The original ones had Eddas. Same thing with the original Tudors had Eddas, and now many of the better, or I guess all at this point, well, not all, but most of the Tudors you'd be interested in have in-house movements at a place called Kenissi, which is actually located in Tudor. So the Kenissi manufacturer produces a lot of the movements for Chanel that they put in their J12s. And these are, of course, the Tudor movements. The movement inside of this Black Bay ceramic is the Calibre MT5602-U. It's an automatic, operates at 4 Hertz with 70 hours of power reserve. It's both COSC chronometer certified as well as MEDUS certified. So this is highly anti-magnetic. That's what master chronometer means on the dial. You can see it there. So this is a really durable movement that's accurate, that's anti-magnetic. This execution just offers the time with seconds, no date, which I like. But this is about as good as a Swiss-made tool watch movement as you can hope for. You can't see it through the case back, solid case back. That's fine, but it's in there, and it's really a nice movement to have. Again, it's maybe overkill, actually, and this is not an inexpensive watch, but it's actually a very good movement to have, to aspire to, if you want like a really durable, super Swiss, in-house made, just great movement on a lot of areas. Again, not the thinnest movement in the world, but that's fine. I really admire these MT5602s. They're really just great. I've heard no problems with them. Tudor's obviously part of Rolex, so you get the same type of obsessive engineering and focus on attention to detail. And it is made by Tudor. I know. I've been there. I've seen it. So, when you want something which is, fully integrated, vertically integrated, this is sort of the best of what you can get, especially since the price point is fair. I said it's high, but I'll get to that in a minute. One of the things that makes this a black-on-black watch, and that's another trend started in the early 2000s. I think Jean-Claude Biver at Hublot was really the one that said all black. So you had the all black Hublot Big Bangs, Bell & Ross did it, a number of other companies did it. And all black watches have sort of a masculine coolness factor to them. They just sort of look interesting. It's difficult to explain exactly why it is. One of the things that Biver said to me years ago, which I thought was brilliant, was visible invisibility. So you could see that it was hard to see. And when you saw this on someone else's wrist, you're like, what's up with that all black watch? Now, one problem that certain all black watches had, understandably, is that they were hard to read. So the solution was to make sure you had high contrast, but that everything was still black on black. So what you have here is probably the best of how that was done. You have an all black dial, but there's different shades of black or gray, as well as different levels. So there's the 3-dimensional element of the applied hour markers. And then you also have the different finishing. The way that it plays with light is different. So this is a very legible dial. It seems to be high contrast, yet you still have a black on black situation. The Lume is maybe not as powerful as it would be in a watch that was fully, a lighter color. But there's lume shots in the written review of this on the aBlogtoWatch website. You can see that it's just fine. I've worn this in the day and it glows pretty well. So I wouldn't say that there's a huge, huge sacrifice on the lume strength, even though you would technically get a better experience with lighter color lume. But this approach that Tudor has taken with the Black Bay Ceramic all black is exactly what you need to do in order to make sure that you have legibility with that neat black on black look. And this is not something which has been popular for a long time. Again, it's been at least 10 years or so since a brand has really gotten excited about the all black watch with the black on black, dial and all that. It used to be more common. So in a sense, this is a blast from the past. It's funny, on the Tudor website, I don't know what they call it. They don't call it all black. They have some little term they use for it. I forget, I was reading it. But something in there like, and the continuing legacy of Tudor doing this sort of like blackout or dark out, maybe that's what they call it look. I'm like, what other Tudor watches have had this black on black look? I have no idea what they're talking about. Like, are they pretending that they suddenly done this for a long time? I just think it's very funny that they try to make it out as though, yeah, we've been doing black on black forever. No, I don't think they have. As I take the bracelet on and off, something is reminded to me that I think is very, very important to mention. It's a little thing. Now, ideally, it'd be great to have a micro adjust. No, doing all that with ceramic would be a pain. Formex, I think, is probably the only company that has a ceramic bracelet watch with a micro adjust, but because they make it all themselves, Tudor could do it. But they have another thing here which I like. Now, there is a half link. I took it out, so you can size the bracelet pretty precisely. But the thing I want to mention is their particular style of butterfly clasp. Now, what I love about this is there's no one side that has to close first. I get very annoyed that certain clasps have like a lip or have like a little area that means that one side needs to be folded down first, and this one doesn't require that. So this is kind of thicker middle section here, but then as you can see, you can close it from the left or the right in any order that you want, and it's fine. Sounds stupid, but I have found that to be an amazing quality. So when I wear this watch, it's so great that you don't have to sit there and close one side versus the other. It's a great way to scratch things up because you just, for whatever reason, do the wrong side all the time, put it over, and those pieces of metal are hitting one another. So this is an excellent clasp. Yes, it uses some metal parts, that's fine. But just overall, I thought that was really nicely done, and I appreciate that very, very much. From the tactile perspective, the ceramic is smooth. Now, quickly, again, this is becoming a long review. Why ceramic in the first place? Well, the color is one part of it. Ceramic used to be able to be available in just white or black. Now there's a large number of colors, to be honest, that are fantastic, even colors that were previously never deemed possible. So theoretically speaking, Tudor could make this in banana yellow if they wanted to, or pink, or the blue that they like. Was it called flamingo blue? Yeah, they could do that in ceramic if they really wanted to. So they're not limited to black like they were in the past. So this could be something that we see in other ceramic colors, as well as the sort of steel versions of the Black Bay that are available. So that's important to say. But again, ceramic is more than just color. It's scratch resistant. And that's super important to me. Now, a lot of people are worried about ceramic. Like, okay, it is very scratch resistant, but if you drop it, does it shatter? Can it break? Well, yeah, it's not going to bend like metal. It won't deform, but I've just never heard of that. Now, this watch, remember, this has a bunch of links. If you drop this on the floor, it's not like one big part is going to be pressured to bend. These things just kind of collapse on themselves. The case, hard to crack. It could happen. I've just not really heard too many stories about it. The upside to ceramic is that this is going to resist wear much better than metal. It's not wear proof, okay? But it is wear resistant, and a lot of things that look like permanent scuffs on the ceramic can actually be cleaned off. So you'll have a smudge or something, you're like, I can't get rid of it. They can actually be scraped off without hurting the underlying ceramic material. So from the perspective of this watch looking new for a very, very long time, then this is a great investment. Yes, again, this sort of lip around the bezel where the knurling is, where the teeth are, that's something that can wear, might chip off. That is a fragile area. But again, that's not new to watches like this. Most of the ceramic watches with unidirectional rotating diver style bezels still have that same issue. I mentioned the case size was 41 and 13.6 millimeters thick. The watch is also water resistant 200 meters, like all other Black Bay watches. And over the dial is sort of this semi-box style sapphire crystal with a relatively low amount of glare. Dive style watch on a bracelet, highly scratch resistant, one of the most effective outcomes of a black on black watch I've seen in a long time. Now, what about the price of the Tudor Black Bay Ceramic on the full bracelet? Well, I will say that it costs a little bit more than $2,000 more to have the full ceramic case and bracelet over the price of the equivalent steel version of the Tudor Black Bay that also has a master chronometer movement. The retail price for this watch is $7,725. You can see the full review on the aBlogtoWatch website. I do think that the ceramic upgrade is not terribly expensive for what went into it, though I don't want anyone to feel that this has to be the new price of the Black Bay. Around $5,000 or a little bit above $5,000 is still the sweet spot. Still not cheap, but again, if you just want the Black Bay experience with a good movement, you don't necessarily need to go into this type of range. But I'm very excited about this. I happen to be a big fan of these types of watches. So while the Tudor Black Bay is a great conservative watch, this sort of elevates it to a level that excites me a lot. Please see the full review of the Tudor Black Bay Ceramic on the full ceramic bracelet on the aBlogtoWatch.com website, and let me know what you think about this watch in the comments. Thanks.